Joan Douglas made a mistake that night, the kind of mistake that women are taught to make from birth. She was polite when she should have been rude, accommodating when she should have been cold. The man in the VIP booth wasn't celebrating her jazz set when he bought her champagne, he was buying time to execute a plan he'd crafted over 2 months of silent observation. By the time the room started spinning and the bass from the club felt like it was coming from underwater, Joan realized she'd walked into a trap set by a man who believed his family's billions made him untouchable. She stumbled into the night looking for salvation, but what she found instead was Ha-Jun Sung, the butcher of Busan, Seoul's most feared crime boss, and the last man she should have trusted. Except he'd been watching her too, and when he emerged from those black sedans with death in his eyes, Joan learned that monsters come in different forms, and sometimes the one you need wears a perfectly tailored suit and carries you to safety like you're the only thing in the world worth protecting. Joan noticed him the first time he came into the Vertex about 8 weeks ago. Hard not to notice Park Ye-jun. He always took the same VIP booth overlooking the stage. Always ordered the same thing, a bottle of Dom Perignon that he'd nursed through her entire set. Always stayed until exactly midnight. Always left a tip for the servers that was obscenely generous, 500,000 won on a 200,000 won tab. At first, it seemed harmless, maybe even flattering. A wealthy regular who appreciated live jazz. Joan was a singer at the Vertex on Friday and Saturday nights, and had been for 6 months since extending her teaching contract in Seoul, and regular patrons who actually listened instead of talking over the music were rare. So she smiled at him during her sets, made eye contact when she sang the sultrier numbers, nodded her thanks when he applauded a little too enthusiastically. That was her first mistake, acknowledging him. His name was Park Ye-jun. She learned that the 4th time he came in, when he sent champagne to her dressing room with a card. For the beautiful voice that makes Fridays worth living. YJ. The other performers told her who he was, son of the Pak Tech Ventures chairman, heir to a fortune that could buy entire neighborhoods in Gangnam, the kind of man who'd never heard the word no in his entire privileged life. He was maybe 32. Handsome in that polished, gym-sculpted way that Korean wealth afforded. Designer everything, watches, suits, shoes. The kind of man who was completely aware of his own appeal and wielded it like a weapon. The attention started small. He'd request songs during her sets. Send flowers to the club. Wait by the backstage exit to tell her how much he enjoyed her performance. Compliments that lived in that uncomfortable space between appreciation and possession, but never quite crossed the line enough for her to complain to management. Then they got worse. You have the most sensual voice I've ever heard. I imagine what it sounds like in other contexts. That dress fits you perfectly. You should wear tighter things. Show off that body. A woman like you shouldn't be working in a place like this. I could take care of you. Give you everything you need. Comments delivered with a smile, always in English so she'd understand every word, always when no one else was close enough to hear. Joan started avoiding him when she could. She'd slip out the side exit before her set ended, take different routes to the subway, ignore the flowers that kept arriving with increasingly possessive notes. But the Vertex's manager started pressuring her. Ye-jun is a very important client. His father owns stock in the building. Be nice to him, Joan. Just smile. It's part of the job. Tonight was a Friday. Ye-jun's regular night. Joan had been dreading it since she woke up. He arrived at 10 p.m., 30 minutes before her first set. Took his usual booth. Ordered his usual champagne. But tonight something was different. Tonight, he didn't just watch from a distance. Tonight, he sent his personal server with a message. He wanted to buy her a drink, to celebrate her incredible talent, and would she please join him in the VIP section during her break. Joan's instinct screamed no. But the manager was watching. The other staff were watching. This was Korea, where refusing a wealthy patron's invitation was a social catastrophe. Where being a foreign woman meant already walking a tightrope of cultural expectations and visa requirements. She went. The VIP section was separated from the main floor by frosted glass panels that turned everyone outside into blurry shadows. Yi-jun stood when she approached, all manufactured charm and predatory eyes. "Joan, you honor me." He gestured to the booth. "Please, sit. I've been wanting to properly thank you for the joy you bring to my week." "That's very kind, but I only have a few minutes before my next set. Then we'll make them count." He was already pouring champagne into a flute, the bubbles catching the pink and blue neon lights filtering through the club. Dom Perignon rose. "I had it brought in specifically for you. Please." He held out the glass. Joan looked at it. At him. At the frosted glass that separated them from witnesses. Every instinct told her to walk away. But the manager's warning echoed in her head. Her visa renewal was coming up. She needed this gig. She needed to not cause problems. She took the glass because saying no felt more dangerous than saying yes. Because he was standing too close, blocking the easiest exit. Because he was a VIP client and she'd been conditioned her whole life to be accommodating. Because sometimes being a woman in a foreign country meant swallowing your discomfort to survive. "Thank you, Yi-jun." She took the glass, forced a smile. "I appreciate the gesture. The pleasure is entirely mine." His eyes traveled down her body, the blue satin dress that clung to her curves, the one that looked stunning under stage lights but now felt too revealing. "Entirely mine." She took a polite sip. It tasted normal. Expensive. Maybe slightly bitter at the finish, but champagne could be bitter. He raised his own glass. "To new beginnings." She took another sip to be polite, then another when he kept watching her expectantly. 5 minutes of uncomfortable small talk. Him asking invasive questions about where she lived, whether she lived alone, what her schedule was like. Her giving vague answers and checking her phone for an escape. "I should get back," she finally said, standing. "My set starts in." The room tilted. Joan grabbed the edge of the table. The neon lights from the club suddenly seemed too bright, haloed and bleeding like watercolors in rain. The bass from the DJ booth felt muffled, like she was underwater. "Are you alright?" Yi-jun's voice sounded far away and too close at the same time. "You look pale." "I'm fine. I just need," her tongue felt thick. Her legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's body. "Oh God." The champagne glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the table, rolled, shattered on the floor in a spray of pink liquid and crystal. "Oh God, no. Hold on, because this is where everything goes wrong." If you're enjoying this story already, please hit the like button right now, it really helps the channel grow. And make sure you subscribe because trust me, what happens next is absolutely terrifying. Also, comment down below where you're watching from and what time it is in your country right now, because I love reading your comments. And thank you so much for taking your time to watch this story, seriously, I appreciate you. "Joan, you don't look well." Yi-jun was standing now, his hand on her elbow. His touch felt like ice. "Let me help you to my car. You need to lie down. Run." The word screamed through her drugged brain. Joan yanked her arm away, stumbled backward, crashed into a chair. Her heel caught. She kicked off both shoes. "Had to move. Had to get out. Don't be difficult." His voice had changed. Dropped the pretense of concern. "I'm trying to help you." Joan pushed through the VIP section door, burst onto the main floor. The club was a kaleidoscope of bodies and sound. She tried to scream, but her voice came out slurred, pathetic. People were looking at her like she was drunk. Just another messy foreigner who couldn't handle her alcohol. Exit. She needed the exit. She stumbled toward the back of the club, where the emergency door opened to the alley. Her vision was narrowing, dark spots blooming at the edges. She hit the door with her shoulder. It flew open. Humid Seoul night air hit her face. The alley was narrow, lit by a single flickering streetlight and the pink-blue neon glow from the club signs above. Steam rose from a vent, turning the space into something dreamlike and terrifying. The main street was at the far end, maybe 30 meters away. If she could just reach it. The emergency door opened behind her. Click. 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 Designer shoes on wet pavement. Joan. Yi-jun's voice echoed off the brick walls. He wasn't hurrying. Didn't need to. Where are you going? The car is the other direction. Her legs gave out. She caught herself against the alley wall, kept moving forward because stopping meant letting him catch her. The brick was rough under her palm. Real. The only real thing in a world that was dissolving. You know, his voice was closer, I've been very patient with you. Very respectful. But you keep rejecting me. Do you know how humiliating that is? I'm Park Yi-jun, women beg for my attention. Joan's knees buckled. She slid down the wall, her blue dress riding up, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Don't worry. His shadow fell over her. After tonight, you'll understand what an honor this is. And if you think about going to the police. He crouched down, grabbed her chin, forced her to look at his face. The cameras in this district have a habit of malfunctioning when I'm around. And my father's lawyers are very, very good at making problems disappear. You wouldn't be the first. Joan tried to pull away. Tried to fight. Her body wasn't responding. She was going to pass out. Going to collapse right here, and he was going to. God, she couldn't even think about what he was going to do. That's when the headlights hit. Blinding. White-blue LED beams that cut through the steam and darkness like searchlights, turning the alley into a stage. Yi-jun jerked back, his hand leaving her face. Joan's drugged brain tried to process what she was seeing through the glare. Black sedans. 3 of them. Boxing both ends of the alley. Doors opening in perfect synchronization. Men stepped out. 6 of them. Identical black suits. Moving with military precision. They formed a perimeter, their faces expressionless, their attention locked on Yi-jun. And then he emerged from the center vehicle. Even through her blurred vision, Joan could see him clearly. Tall, powerfully tall. Black suit tailored so precisely it looked like armor. Hair styled back, showing a face of sharp angles and brutal beauty. And eyes. Dark eyes that swept over her crumpled form with something that looked like barely controlled rage. Ha-Jun Sung. She didn't know his name yet. Didn't know that the man walking toward them with measured, lethal steps was the most feared crime boss in Seoul. Didn't know that he'd been sitting in the owner's private booth at the Vertex every Friday for 6 months, listening to her sing, watching her with an obsession that rivaled Yi-jun's but came from a completely different, infinitely more dangerous place. All she knew was that the man's expression changed when he looked at her, something dark and possessive flickering across his features, before his gaze locked onto Yi-jun with pure murder in his eyes. Ha-Jun Sung moved like violence given human form. Joan's drugged mind tracked his approach in fractured snapshots, the way his enforcers parted for him like water around stone, the precise click of his Italian leather shoes on wet pavement, the cold fury etched into features that would have been beautiful if they weren't so terrifying. Yi-jun scrambled backward, his confidence evaporating. Do you know who I am? I'm Park Yi-jun. My father. Your father, Ha-Jun said in perfect, unaccented English, isn't here. He moved with terrifying speed. One moment he was 3 meters away. The next, his hand was wrapped around Yi-jun's wrist. The sound of bone breaking echoed off the alley walls, a wet, sickening crunch that made Joan's stomach lurch even through the haze of drugs. Yi-jun's scream was high-pitched, inhuman. Ha-Jun didn't flinch. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper that somehow carried through the steam and darkness. Touch her again, and you're dead. In fact, his grip tightened, eliciting another shriek, "Pray you die quickly." He released Yi-jun, who collapsed onto the wet pavement, cradling his shattered wrist and sobbing. Ha-Jun didn't spare him another glance. His attention shifted entirely to Joan. She was still slumped against the wall, her blue dress stained with grime, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The world was tilting, dissolving. She couldn't hold on much longer. Joan. Her name in his mouth sounded like a prayer and a command. He crouched in front of her, and she caught a glimpse of his face, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could have been carved from granite, and those eyes. Dark, bottomless, burning with something that should have terrified her but somehow didn't. "Please," she managed, her voice barely audible. "Help." Her legs gave out completely. Ha-Jun caught her before she hit the ground. One arm under her knees, the other supporting her back, lifting her against his chest like she weighed nothing. Joan's head lolled against his shoulder, her cheek pressing against the fine wool of his suit jacket. She could smell him, expensive cologne, cigarette smoke, and something darker she couldn't name. "I have you," he murmured in English, so quietly she thought she might have imagined it. "You're safe now." Through her blurred vision, Joan saw his men closing in around them, forming a protective circle. Ha-Jun's expression had transformed, fierce, possessive, the face of a man who just claimed something precious in a world built on violence. Behind them, Yi-jun was still screaming, alternating between threats and pleas. Ha-Jun paused at the door of the center sedan, glancing back over his shoulder. "Min-ho," he said in Korean, his voice flat and final. "Educate him on the value of silence. Make sure he understands that breathing is a privilege I can revoke." "Yes, Do-mak." One of the enforcers stepped toward Yi-jun's crumpled form. Ha-Jun slid into the back seat, still cradling Joan. The leather was cool against her bare legs. The door closed, muffling Yi-jun's screams, and the sedan pulled away from the alley, leaving behind the pink-blue neon, the steam, and the sobbing heir who'd learned too late that money couldn't buy immunity from Seoul's underworld. Joan's last conscious thought before the darkness took her was that she'd traded one monster for another. She just didn't know yet which one would destroy her. Joan woke to glass and sky. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was recessed lighting, soft and modern. The bed beneath her was enormous, the sheets Egyptian cotton with a thread count she could feel against her skin. And beyond. Oh God! Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across an entire wall, revealing Seoul sprawled below like a circuit board of light. The Han River snaked through the city, bridges strung across it like jewels. She was so high up that the cars on the expressway looked like toys. Lotte World Tower. She was in the Lotte World Tower. Panic clawed up her throat. Joan sat up too quickly, and her head spun, stomach lurching. The drugs were still in her system, a chemical hangover that made her skull feel like it was full of cotton and broken glass. She looked down at herself. Still wearing the blue satin dress, now wrinkled and stained at the hem. Her shoes were gone. Someone had placed them neatly by the door, her cheap kitten heels looking pathetic against the polished marble floor. She was physically intact. No new bruises. No, she forced herself to check, hands shaking, no evidence that anything had happened to her while she was unconscious. But she was in a stranger's bedroom. A stranger who'd broken a man's wrist like it was nothing. A stranger whose men had called him Do-mak. Boss. The door opened, and Joan's heart stopped. Ha-Jun Sung entered carrying a tray. He'd shed his suit jacket, and his white dress shirt was pristine except for the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms roped with lean muscle. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. Without the armor of his full suit, he looked younger, maybe late 30s, and somehow more dangerous for it. "You're awake," he said in English, his accent minimal, cultured. "Good. You've been out for 4 hours. Where?" Joan's voice cracked. She tried again. Where am I? Why aren't I at a hospital? He set the tray on the nightstand. A glass of water. A bowl of soup that smelled like beef broth and bean sprouts. Haejanguk, hangover soup. You're in my home, he said simply. And you're not at a hospital because a hospital would have destroyed you. What are you talking about? Ha-Jun pulled up a chair, sitting with the casual confidence of a man in his own territory. His dark eyes studied her with unnerving intensity. Think, Joan. You were drugged by Park Ye-jun, the heir to Pak Tech Ventures. If I'd taken you to a hospital, they would have reported it. The police would have been called. He paused, letting that sink in. Do you understand what happens next in that scenario? Joan's throat tightened. Park Ye-jun's lawyers arrive before the drugs are even out of your system. They claim you're lying. That you threw yourself at him. That you're a foreign entertainer trying to extort money from a respectable Korean family. His voice was clinical, detached. They'll accuse you of defamation. Your visa will be revoked before the toxicology results come back. You'll be deported, blacklisted, and Park Ye-jun will walk free. That can't be legal. It's reality. Ha-Jun leaned forward. I saved you from the assault, Joan. And I saved you from the aftermath. Because in this city, men like Park Ye-jun don't face consequences. His expression darkened. Unless men like me make them. Joan stared at him, her mind struggling to process the nightmare logic of what he was saying. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who's been waiting a very long time to meet you properly. You still haven't answered my question, Joan said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Who are you? Really? Ha-Jun Sung stood, moving to the windows. Seoul glittered behind him, making him look like a king surveying his domain. When he turned back, his expression was unreadable. I'm the head of Chilseong-pa. The 7-star mob. He said it the way someone might say I'm an accountant, matter of fact, almost casual. I control most of the underground operations in Seoul. Protection, imports, entertainment venues. He paused. Including the Vertex. Joan's stomach dropped. You own the jazz club where you sing. Yes. He walked back toward her, each step deliberate. I've been watching you for 6 months, Joan. Every Friday night. Every Saturday. From the owner's booth where no one can see me. The word should have terrified her. Should have sent her running for the door. But something in his tone stopped her, not predatory like Ye-jun's attention, but something else. Something almost reverent. I'm not a stalker, he continued, as if reading her thoughts. I'm a man who appreciated something beautiful in a world full of ugliness. Your voice. Your resilience. The way you navigated a country that wasn't built for you. His jaw tightened. And I saw Park Ye-jun circling you like a shark, and I waited for you to handle it yourself. But when I saw you stumble into that alley tonight. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Ha-Jun picked up a tablet from the dresser, handed it to her. Before you decide what happens next, you need to see this. Joan's hands shook as she took it. The screen showed a folder labeled, Park Ye-jun. She opened it. Photos. Dozens of them. Young women, Korean, foreign, all beautiful, all looking terrified or drugged or broken. Police reports with official stamps, then marked case closed, insufficient evidence. Bank transfers in the millions of won. Names of lawyers, judges, police captains. A pattern of predation spanning 5 years. Joan felt bile rise in her throat. How many? 14 that we could confirm. Probably more. Ha-Jun's voice was granite. His father's money made it all disappear. Every single time. She scrolled through the files, each one a nightmare of systemic failure. Girls who tried to report. Girls who were deported. Girls who vanished from public record entirely. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand your position. Ha-Jun sat on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain distance. You're a foreigner in a country that protects its wealthy sons. Park Ye-jun knows you saw his face. Knows you could identify him. If you walk out that door, he will find you. His family has the resources. And I cannot stop him, he paused, legally. The unspoken word hung between them like a blade. Joan set down the tablet. What are you offering? 2 choices. Ha-Jun's eyes locked onto hers. Option A, I put you on a first-class flight to America tonight. New identity if you want it. Enough money to start over. You'll be safe, but you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if his reach extends that far. And option B. His expression darkened, something predatory sliding beneath the careful control. You stay. And I handle the problem my way. He leaned closer. Park Ye-jun will never touch another woman. Never speak another threat. He'll exist, but only as a warning to others who think power makes them untouchable. You mean you'll kill him? I mean he'll wish I had. Joan stared at the tablet in her lap, the faces of 14 women staring back at her like ghosts demanding justice. She was a teacher. An English instructor who graded essays on Hemingway and helped students with pronunciation. Law-abiding. Moral. The kind of person who'd never even gotten a speeding ticket. But her arm throbbed where Ye-jun had grabbed her, bruises already blooming purple-black against her brown skin. And she couldn't stop thinking about the girl in photo 7, barely 20, wearing a college uniform, her case file stamped closed 3 days after she reported. You're English, Joan said suddenly, looking up at Ha-Jun, it's perfect. No Korean accent. Where did you learn? He seemed surprised by the question. A crack in his armor. Itaewon, he said after a moment. I grew up in the international district. Orphaned at 6. No family name, no connections, no value in a country that measures worth by bloodline. His voice was flat, reciting facts. I was raised by foreign soldiers, cast-offs and missionaries who couldn't save me. English was survival. Korean was the language of people who looked through me like I was invisible. Joan recognized that tone. The careful neutrality of someone who'd learned early that showing pain meant showing weakness. They treated you like trash, she said quietly. They treated me like I didn't exist. Ha-Jun's jaw tightened. So I made myself impossible to ignore. Built power where the system said I deserved none. Became the monster they already believed I was. You're not a monster. His eyes snapped to hers, dark and dangerous. Yes, I am. I've done things that would make you run screaming from this room. But you didn't do them to me. Joan set the tablet aside. You saved me. You could have let Ye-jun drag me into that car. Could have looked the other way like everyone else in that alley. But you didn't. I couldn't. The words came out raw, unguarded. I've watched you for 6 months. Watched you navigate a country that makes you prove your worth every single day. Watched you sing like you're sharing pieces of your soul, and he stopped, regaining control. You deserved better than becoming another name in his collection. The silence stretched between them, heavy with understanding. 2 outsiders in a city built on homogeneity and hierarchy. 2 people the system had failed in different ways. Joan looked at the tablet again. At the 14 faces. At the pattern of abuse that would continue because men like Park Ye-jun believed themselves untouchable. The law wouldn't give her justice. Wouldn't give them justice. But the man sitting across from her could. She met Ha-Jun's gaze, her decision crystallizing into something hard and unbreakable. Make sure he never touches anyone again. The words came out steady, final. Not a request. A command. Ha-Jun went very still. Something shifted in his expression, recognition, respect, and something darker that looked like possession. You understand what you're asking? I understand exactly what I'm asking. Joan didn't flinch. I understand that I'm crossing a line. That I'm choosing your justice over the system's failure. That this makes me complicit. She leaned forward. I don't care. Those girls deserve better. I deserve better. Ha-Jun stood slowly, like a predator recognizing worthy prey. He crossed to her, dropped to one knee so they were eye level. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of an oath. He will never hurt another woman. On my life, on my empire, I swear it. Joan placed her hand over his heart, feeling it beat steady and strong beneath her palm. Then do it. The victim became the accomplice. And the monster became her sword. Ha-Jun left before dawn. Stay here, he'd said, already dressed in a fresh suit, all traces of the man who'd knelt before her gone. My people will bring you anything you need. Don't leave the penthouse. It wasn't a request. Joan spent the first hour testing the boundaries of her golden cage. The penthouse was obscene in its luxury, minimalist furniture that cost more than her yearly salary, original artwork on the walls, a kitchen with appliances she didn't know how to use. Everything was steel and glass in cold perfection. Silent. Suffocating. She found his library, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books in Korean, English, Japanese. Thrillers mostly, and classical philosophy. A first-edition Camus sat next to a dog-eared copy of The Art of War. In the bedroom, his closet was a monument to control. Suits arranged by color. Shirts pressed and identical. Even his violence was organized. By midday, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, don't watch the news. HS. She watched anyway. The first report came at 2 p.m., Pak Tech Ventures stock plummets amid fraud allegations. Leaked documents. SEC investigations. The chairman, Yi-jun's father, looking haggard at a press conference. At 4 p.m., police raid Pak family compound, evidence of tax evasion uncovered. At 6 p.m., Pak Yi-jun wanted for questioning in multiple assault cases, anonymous tips flood police hotline. Ha-Jun wasn't killing him. He was erasing him. Dismantling the empire that had protected a predator, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but rubble and shame. He returned just after midnight. Joan heard the door open, felt his presence before she saw him. She was on the balcony, wrapped in one of his shirts because her blue dress had become a reminder of everything she wanted to forget. Ha-Jun stepped outside, and she smelled rain and cigarette smoke. His suit jacket was gone, tie loosened, top button undone. He looked exhausted, not physically, but the bone-deep weariness of a man who'd spent hours orchestrating destruction. It's done? She asked. The first phase. He leaned against the railing beside her, careful not to touch. By morning, the Pak family won't have the power to protect him. By next week, he'll be in a cell with men who know exactly what he is. Joan should have felt triumph. Satisfaction. Instead, she felt oddly hollow. Are you all right? Ha-Jun asked, and the gentleness in his voice surprised her. I don't know what I am. He turned to face her fully, studying her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Then, slowly, giving her time to pull away, he reached out and touched her face. His fingers traced the line of her jaw, feather-light, a stark contrast to the violence she knew those hands were capable of. You're stronger than you think, he murmured. Most people break when they see what the world really is. You didn't break. You chose to fight back. Joan leaned into his touch, something shifting in the air between them. The adrenaline had faded. The fear had crystallized into something else, awareness, attraction, a magnetic pull she couldn't name. You're different, she whispered. From what I expected. What did you expect? A monster. His smile was sad, knowing. I am a monster, Joan. Just not to you. He dropped his hand, stepped back, putting professional distance between them. But the tension remained, crackling like electricity in the humid Seoul night. You should rest, he said. Tomorrow, decisions need to be made about what comes next. He left her on the balcony, surrounded by the city he ruled, wondering when exactly the monster had started feeling like safety. Joan woke to the sound of Korean news anchors speaking in urgent, clipped tones. She found Ha-Jun in the living room, coffee in hand, watching 3 different news channels on mounted screens. He'd been awake for hours, maybe hadn't slept at all. His shirt was crisp, his hair perfectly styled, but shadows lived beneath his eyes. What happened? She asked. He didn't turn from the screens. Just raised the volume on the center one. Tragic accident in the Swiss Alps. Park Ye-jun, 32, son of embattled Pak Tech Ventures chairman, was found early this morning after his vehicle left a mountain road near Zermatt. He survived the crash but suffered catastrophic spinal injuries. Doctors say he is paralyzed from the neck down and has lost the ability to speak due to severe trauma. Joan's breath caught. The screen showed a hospital in Switzerland, the Pak family's lawyers forming a barrier at the entrance. Then a photo of Ye-jun from before, handsome, smiling, untouchable. He was supposed to be in Seoul, Joan whispered. He was. Until 3 a.m., when my people escorted him to a private jet. Ha-Jun's voice was emotionless, clinical. The Swiss police will find evidence of alcohol, reckless driving. His father's legal team is already there, but there's nothing to dispute. It was an accident. The word dripped with irony. Joan sank onto the couch, unable to look away from the screen. Ye-jun was alive. Would live for decades, probably. But trapped in a body that no longer obeyed him, unable to speak, unable to hurt anyone ever again. A fate worse than death for a man who'd wielded control like a weapon. She should have felt horror. Should have been repulsed by what Ha-Jun had orchestrated. Instead, she felt a cold, dark satisfaction settling in her chest, and that terrified her more than anything else. Is it done? She asked. Yes. Ha-Jun finally turned to face her. He no longer exists as a threat. Not to you. Not to anyone. Good. The word came out before she could stop it. Ha-Jun's expression flickered, something like approval, something like concern. He set down his coffee, crossed to where she sat. But instead of sitting beside her, he remained standing, putting distance between them. You should leave, Joan. She looked up sharply. What? Go back to your apartment. Your teaching job. Your normal life. His voice was firm, final. You're safe now. That's what mattered. But staying here, being seen with me, it puts a target on your back. I thought you said I was safe. You are. From Park Ye-jun. Not from the rest of my world. Ha-Jun's jaw tightened. I have enemies, Joan. Rivals who would love to find a weakness. And you, he gestured at her, something raw flashing across his face, you're a weakness I can't afford. Joan stood, anger flaring hot in her chest. So what, you save me, destroy my attacker, and then just, dismiss me? Send me back to my studio apartment in Itaewon like nothing happened? Yes. That's not your decision to make. It's the smart decision. The safe one. Ha-Jun stepped closer, his control slipping. I'm dangerous, Joan. Being near me means living in a world where violence is currency and loyalty is bought with blood. You don't belong in that world. Maybe I don't want safe anymore, Joan said, echoing words she hadn't yet spoken. Maybe I want. Don't. His voice was sharp, cutting. Don't finish that sentence. But the words hung between them anyway, unspoken and undeniable. Joan's apartment felt like a museum exhibit of someone else's life. Ha-Jun's guards waited outside, Two stone-faced men in black suits who drove her in silence, escorted her up the narrow stairs, and positioned themselves by the door like sentries. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it 3 days ago, dishes in the sink, lesson plans spread across the kitchen table, her performance schedule pinned to the fridge. Small. Safe. Suffocating. She packed mechanically. Clothes, books, her passport. But her hands kept shaking, and she couldn't stop looking at the window, 3rd floor, flimsy lock, anyone could break in. The street below suddenly seemed full of threats. Every passing car could be Yi-jun's allies. Every stranger could be an enemy. She'd lived here for a year and never felt afraid. Now, away from the fortress in the sky, she felt exposed. Vulnerable. Terrifyingly alone. But it wasn't just the safety she missed. It was the way Ha-Jun looked at her, like she was something precious in a world of disposable things. The quiet intensity of his presence. The contradiction of gentle hands that could break bones, a monster who'd knelt before her like she was a queen. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid for him. Afraid of what his world would do to him without someone to remind him he was more than the violence he wielded. Joan dropped the suitcase. "Take me back," she told the guards. The penthouse guards tried to stop her. Dumock said. "I don't care what he said." Joan pushed past them, her heart hammering. "Where is he?" "Miss Douglas, you can't." But she was already moving, following instinct through the halls until she found him in a room she hadn't seen before, a study lined with dark wood and leather, a desk covered in documents. Ha-Jun stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. He turned when she entered, surprise flickering across his face before the mask slammed back into place. He ended the call. "Joan. What are you?" "No." She crossed the room, closing the distance between them. "You don't get to push me away for my own good. You don't get to make that choice for me. This isn't a choice, it's reality." His voice was hard, defensive. "I am a monster, Joan. I've killed men. Destroyed lives. Built an empire on violence and fear. You deserve better than." She placed her hand over his heart, silencing him. The gesture was deliberate, echoing the moment she'd given him her command. But this time it meant something different. This time it was a claim, not a request. "I don't want safe," Joan said, her voice steady and sure. "I don't want normal. I don't want to go back to my small apartment and my small life and pretend that I didn't see who you really are." Ha-Jun's hand came up to cover hers, pressing it harder against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat racing beneath her palm. "And who am I?" His voice was rough, barely controlled. "You're the man who saved me when no one else would. Who gave me justice when the system failed. Who sees me, really sees me, in a country where I'm usually invisible." She stepped closer, eliminating the last inch of space between them. "You're dangerous and violent and everything I should run from. But you're also the only person who's ever made me feel like I matter. Joan. I want you," she whispered. "Monster and all." Something broke in Ha-Jun's expression. The careful control shattered, revealing raw need and desperate longing underneath. He pulled her against him, one hand tangling in her hair, the other wrapping around her waist like he'd never let go. When he kissed her, it tasted like surrender and possession and a promise neither of them could take back. 3 weeks later, Joan Douglas returned to the Vertex. But she didn't return as the girl in the blue satin dress who smiled politely and avoided eye contact. She returned as something else entirely, something forged in fire and fear and the ruthless protection of Seoul's most dangerous man. The black SUV pulled up to the club's entrance precisely at 10 p.m. Ha-Jun's driver opened the door, and Ha-Jun stepped out first, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. Then he extended his hand. Joan took it. She wore crimson tonight, a dress that cost more than 3 months of her teaching salary, custom tailored to fit like armor. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, her makeup flawless, diamond earrings, a gift from Ha-Jun, catching the neon lights. She looked like power personified. The club owner appeared before they reached the door, bowing so low his forehead nearly touched his knees. "Dumak Nim. Miss Douglas. Welcome. Your table is ready." No mention of the VIP section. No need to specify. Everyone knew which table belonged to Ha-Jun Sung. They walked through the vertex, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Eyes tracked their progress, some with fear, some with envy, all with respect. Ha-Jun's hand rested on the small of Joan's back, possessive and protective, a clear message to everyone watching: she is mine. Touch her and die. Joan felt the weight of their stares but didn't flinch. Didn't shrink. She'd learned in the past 3 weeks that survival in Ha-Jun's world required projecting strength even when you felt vulnerable. Especially then. They climbed the stairs to the VIP section, the same frosted glass booth where Yi-jun had drugged her. Ha-Jun had offered to take her anywhere else, but Joan had insisted. She needed to reclaim this space, to prove to herself that fear no longer owned her. They sat, and a waiter appeared immediately with a sealed bottle of champagne, Dom Perignon, expensive and untouched. He started to open it, but Ha-Jun waved him away. "I'll handle it." The waiter vanished. Ha-Jun opened the bottle himself, checking the seal, pouring the champagne into 2 flutes with careful precision. He handed one to Joan, his dark eyes holding hers. "You didn't have to come back here," he said quietly. "Yes, I did." Joan took the glass. "This is where I almost lost everything. I needed to come back as someone different." "And who are you now?" She considered the question. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a foreign teacher scraping by, invisible to the systems that ran this city. Now she was the partner of a crime lord, protected by men who'd kill at Ha-Jun's command, living in a world where violence and luxury existed in perfect, terrible balance. She should have been horrified by the transformation. She wasn't. "I'm yours," Joan said simply. "And you're mine. That's all that matters." Ha-Jun leaned close, his lips brushing her ear, his voice a low rumble that sent heat through her veins. "You are safe. Always. Anyone who threatens you answers to me." It was a promise and a threat, wrapped in velvet and steel. Joan smiled, not the polite, accommodating smile she'd worn for 2 years in Korea. Not the careful expression of a foreigner trying to fit in. This smile was confidence and claim, the smile of a woman who'd chosen her monster and made him her protector. Below them, the club pulsed with music and light. Seoul sprawled beyond the windows, a city of millions who would never know her name. But the ones who mattered knew. The queen of the night had claimed her throne. The end. And wow, that was a ride. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching this story. I genuinely appreciate you for taking your time to be here. If you enjoyed this Mafia thriller romance, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, because more stories like this are coming. And comment down below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it right now in your country? Also tell me this. Was Joan right to choose Ha-Jun, or do you think she just traded one danger for another? Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next story.